I wanted to cheer up my friend with a scary prank. Dressed as a creep, I burst into the wrong apartment. A family screamed, cops came, and I was cuffed. Then I learned someone else wore my mask. Alright, here's the deal. My name's Jake, a 28-year-old office drone in Chicago, pushing papers for a living. Life's pretty routine, but my best friend Emma, she's my rock. We've been tight since college, always there for each other. About a month ago, Emma got dumped by her jerk of a boyfriend, Mike. She was a wreck, crying over cheap wine in her tiny apartment in Logan Square. I couldn't stand seeing her like that, so I decided to do something big, something to snap her out of it. I'm no comedian, but I figured a good prank could get her laughing. Emma's obsessed with horror movies, especially this one creepy flick about a masked stalker. So I got this wild idea to dress up as the villain from that movie, sneak into her place, and give her a scare she'd laugh about later. I mean, who doesn't love a good jump scare, right? I pictured her screaming, then cracking up when she realized it was me. It'd be epic, a story we'd tell for years. So I headed to a costume shop in Wicker Park. The place was packed with spooky stuff, fake blood, rubber knives, you name it. I grabbed a tattered black cloak, a cheap plastic mask with hollow eyes, and a bottle of fake blood for that extra creepy vibe. Cost me about $50, which felt like a steal for the laugh I'd get. Back home, I practiced my creepy walk in front of the mirror, smearing fake blood on my hands, chuckling at how ridiculous I looked. This was gonna be gold. The plan was simple. Emma's apartment building has a buzzer system, but she always leaves her door cracked when she's home. Bad habit, I know. I'd buzz to get in, slip into the costume in the elevator, and creep into her place. I'd growl something dumb like, "You can't escape," then rip off the mask and yell, "Gotcha!" We'd laugh, maybe order pizza, and she'd forget Mike for a night. Foolproof, right? I spent the day hyping myself up, texting Emma to make sure she'd be home. She said she was chilling, perfect for my ambush. As the sun set, I threw my costume into a duffel bag, hopped on the blue line, and headed to her place. My heart was racing, not from nerves, but from excitement. I could already hear Emma's laugh, see her rolling her eyes at my dumb stunt. This was gonna be the best night ever. Little did I know, I was about to screw up in a way that'd change my life. I stepped off the blue line at Logan Square, the chilly Chicago wind hitting me hard. My duffel bag bounced against my hip, stuffed with the creepy costume I'd bought. Emma's place was a short walk, and I was buzzing with adrenaline, picturing her shocked face when I burst in. The streetlights flickered as I crossed Milwaukee Avenue, my sneakers slapping the pavement. Her building loomed ahead, a boxy red brick complex with a busted intercom system. I'd been here 100 times, so I didn't double-check the address. Big mistake. I hit the buzzer, my fingers fumbling in the cold. No answer, but the door clicked open. Someone must have propped it. Perfect. I slipped inside, the lobby smelling like stale coffee and cleaning spray. The elevator was slow, creaking as it climbed to the 5th floor. I unzipped my bag, heart pounding, and pulled out the black cloak. It smelled like cheap polyester. I slipped it on, the fabric scratching my neck, then smeared fake blood on my hands. The mask went on last, its plastic edges digging into my face. I caught my reflection in the elevator's metal wall. Damn, I looked terrifying. The elevator dinged, doors sliding open. The hallway was dim, carpet worn thin. I spotted a door slightly ajar, light spilling out. That's gotta be Emma's, I thought. She always leaves it cracked, lazy as hell. I crept closer, my pulse racing like I was in some horror flick. Gripping the fake knife, I pushed the door open with a loud creak, stepping inside. "You can't escape!" I growled, deepening my voice, stomping forward for maximum effect. The living room was cozy, lit by a single lamp. I swung my arms dramatically, ready for Emma's scream. But then, a woman's voice, high-pitched, panicked, pierced the air. "Who the hell are you?" I froze. That wasn't Emma. A middle-aged woman in a bathrobe stood by the couch, clutching a phone, her eyes wide with terror. A guy, maybe her husband, bolted from the kitchen, a butcher knife gleaming in his hand. "Get out!" he roared, stepping toward me. My stomach dropped. Wrong apartment. Wrong freaking building. I stammered, "Wait, it's a prank!" But the mask muffled my words. The woman was already dialing 911, screaming about an intruder. The guy lunged closer, knife raised. Nope, not sticking around for this. I spun around, sprinting back to the hallway, my cloak flapping like some deranged bat. The elevator was too slow, so I hit the stairs, tripping over my own feet, the fake knife clattering down. Outside, I ripped off the mask, gasping for air, fake blood smearing my face. I stuffed the costume into my bag, trying to look normal, but my hands were shaking. Sirens wailed in the distance, way too close. 3 cop cars screeched into the lot, lights flashing. I froze, bag slung over my shoulder, looking like a sweaty, guilty mess. An officer jumped out, hand on his holster. "You! Don't move!" he barked, eyeing the red stains on my hands. My heart sank. This was not the epic night I'd planned. The cop's voice cut through the Chicago night like a blade. "Hands where I can see them," he shouted, his flashlight blinding me. I raised my trembling hands, the duffel bag slipping to the ground. Red and blue lights pulsed across the parking lot, reflecting off the wet pavement. 3 officers closed in, their faces hard, hands twitching near their holsters. My heart hammered so loud I swore they could hear it. The fake blood on my hands looked way too real under the streetlights. "What's in the bag?" one officer demanded. his voice sharp. No nonsense. I opened my mouth to explain, but my throat was dry. It's just a costume, I croaked, sounding guilty as hell. I was pranking my friend Emma, I swear. The lead officer, a stocky guy with a buzz cut, didn't blink. Step back, now. I shuffled away, my sneakers scuffing the asphalt, feeling like I'd stepped into a nightmare. They unzipped my bag, pulling out the black cloak, the plastic mask, and the fake knife, still sticky with fake blood. The buzz-cut officer held up the knife, his eyes narrowing. This your idea of a joke? He asked, his tone dripping with disbelief. I nodded, my stomach churning. It's plastic. I was just trying to make my friend laugh. I got the wrong building. My words sounded pathetic, even to me. The woman from the apartment appeared at the building's entrance, still in her bathrobe, pointing at me. That's him! He broke in! She yelled, her voice shaking. Her husband stood beside her, glaring, his fists clenched. I wanted to sink into the ground. I didn't break in, I said, desperate. The door was open. It was a mistake. But the officers weren't listening. One of them grabbed my arm, guiding me toward a squad car. The cold metal of handcuffs clicked around my wrists. The ride to the station was a blur. I sat in the back, the vinyl seat creaking under me, the city lights streaking past. My mind raced. How did this go so wrong? I just wanted to cheer up Emma. Now I was in cuffs, heading to God knows where. At the precinct, they marched me into a small gray room that smelled like bleach. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, making my head throb. They sat me at a metal table, my hands still cuffed. A detective walked in, tall and wiry, with a clipboard and a stare that could cut glass. Jake Thompson, right? He said, not looking up. I nodded, my mouth dry. Care to explain why you thought breaking into an apartment dressed like a psycho was a good idea? I took a shaky breath and spilled everything: Emma's breakup, my dumb prank, the costume shop, the wrong address. My voice cracked as I begged him to call Emma to confirm my story. He scribbled notes, his face unreadable. We'll check your story, he said, standing. But right now, you're in deep trespassing, disturbing the peace, serious stuff. He left me alone, the door slamming shut. I stared at the table, my reflection warped in its scratched surface. My prank, my stupid prank, had landed me here. I wasn't sure I'd talk my way out of this one. The courtroom in downtown Chicago felt like a pressure cooker. I sat at the defendant's table, my tie too tight, my palms sweaty. The room was packed: reporters, curious locals, and the couple I'd terrified, their eyes boring into me. My lawyer, a sharp guy named Tom, leaned over, whispering, "Stay calm, Jake. We've got this." But his words didn't ease the knot in my chest. The judge, a stern woman with gray hair pulled tight, stared down from the bench, her glasses glinting under the fluorescent lights. The prosecutor, a slick guy in a tailored suit, stood up, his voice booming. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this man, Jake Thompson, turned a quiet evening into a nightmare." He paced, holding up photos of my costume, the black cloak, the mask, the fake knife, each item looking more damning under the courtroom's harsh glow. He broke into a family's home, wielding what appeared to be a weapon, drenched in what looked like blood. This wasn't a prank. This was reckless endangerment. My stomach twisted as he painted me as some unhinged lunatic. He called the couple to the stand. The woman, Linda, her voice shaky, described how I'd burst into their apartment, her kids screaming in the background. "I thought we were going to die," she said, wiping tears. Her husband, Mark, followed, his jaw tight. I grabbed a knife to protect my family. That's what any father would do. The jury's faces hardened, and I sank lower in my seat, feeling like the worst person alive. Tom fought back hard. He called Emma to the stand, and she walked in, her eyes red but determined. "Jake's my best friend," she said, her voice steady. "He was trying to cheer me up after a breakup. It was supposed to be a silly prank, like in the movies we watch. He'd never hurt anyone." She looked at me, and I gave a weak nod, grateful but drowning in guilt. Tom showed the grainy security footage, pointing out how I'd hesitated at the door, not acting like a real intruder. This was a mistake, not malice, he argued. The prosecutor wasn't having it. He cross-examined Emma, twisting her words. "So, you think it's normal to barge into someone's home dressed as a killer?" he asked, smirking. Emma faltered, and I could see the jury's doubt growing. Tom presented my clean record: no arrests, no history of trouble, but the prosecutor kept hammering the danger I'd caused. "Intent doesn't erase impact," he said, his voice cold. The jury scribbled notes, their expressions unreadable. Closing arguments felt like a punch to the gut. The prosecutor leaned in, his voice low and dramatic. "Imagine being in your home, safe, then this man storms in, masked, bloodied. What would you feel?" I wanted to scream that it wasn't like that, but I stayed silent, my hands clenched. Tom countered, his tone earnest. "Jake made a stupid choice, but he's no criminal. Punish the mistake, not the man." I held my breath, praying the jury saw me for who I was: a dumbass, not a danger. The wait for the verdict was torture. Hours dragged like days, my mind replaying every moment of that night. When the jury returned, the foreman stood, his voice flat. "We find the defendant guilty of trespassing and disturbing the peace." My heart sank, the room spinning. The judge spoke, her tone heavy. "Mr. Thompson, your actions caused real fear. Intent matters, but so do consequences." She sentenced me to 12 months in a state correctional facility, with credit for time served. As the gavel fell, I felt hollow. Tom squeezed my shoulder, promising an appeal, but the bailiff was already cuffing cuffing me. The couple watched, their faces a mix of relief and anger. Emma mouthed, "I'm sorry," her eyes wet. I was let out, the courtroom's murmurs fading behind me. My prank, my idiotic attempt to make Emma smile, had cost me everything. I wasn't sure how I'd survive what came next. The Illinois State Correctional Facility was a cold, gray maze of concrete and steel. They marched me through the gates, my wrists cuffed, the clang of metal doors echoing in my ears. I was processed like a piece of meat fingerprints, mugshot, a scratchy orange jumpsuit that smelled like bleach and despair. My new home was a 688 cell with a thin cot, a rusted sink, and a toilet that looked like it hadn't been cleaned since the 90s. I sat on the cot, staring at the chipped paint on the wall, my stomach twisting. This was real. I was in prison because of a stupid prank. The first night, I didn't sleep. The cell block was alive with noise shouts, clanging bars, someone coughing like they were hacking up a lung. I kept replaying the courtroom, the judge's voice, Emma's teary eyes. How did I end up here? I was just a guy trying to make my friend laugh. Now I was surrounded by guys who looked like they'd shank you for a pack of cigarettes. I felt like a fish in a shark tank, out of place and way out of my depth. Breakfast was a wake-up call. The mess hall was a sea of orange jumpsuits, the air thick with the smell of burnt toast and tension. I grabbed a tray of gray slop oatmeal maybe, and sat alone at a metal table. A big guy with tattoos snaking up his neck slid onto the bench across from me. "What you in for, newbie?" he asked, his voice low, a scar twitching on his cheek. I swallowed hard, my mouth dry. Tried to prank my friend, dressed up like a creep, got the wrong apartment. His laugh was sharp, like a bark. "A prank? Man, you're the dumbest guy here." The other inmates overheard, and soon I was the punchline of the block. "Clown boy!" one guy yelled, cackling. I kept my head down, my face burning. The nickname stuck, and every day brought new jabs. I learned fast to stay quiet, avoid eye contact, and stick to the routine wake at 6, meals, work detail, lights out at 10. I was assigned to clean the cafeteria, scrubbing tables until my hands ached. It was mind-numbing, but it kept me out of trouble. The worst part? Running into Linda and Mark, the couple I'd scared. They weren't inmates, but they showed up for a restorative justice program, some court-mandated thing where victims confront offenders. We sat in a circle in a stuffy room, their eyes locked on me, full of rage. Linda's voice shook as she spoke. "My kids still have nightmares because of you." Mark leaned forward, his fists clenched. "You think it's funny, scaring people in their own home?" I mumbled apologies, my throat tight, but their glares cut through me. I felt smaller than ever, the weight of my mistake crushing me. Days blurred into weeks. I kept to myself, reading tattered paperbacks from the prison library, writing letters to Emma. She wrote back, her words a lifeline, promising to be there when I got out. But the guilt gnawed at me. My prank had hurt people, real people, and now I was paying the price. I didn't belong here, but maybe I deserved it. Each night, lying on that lumpy cot, I wondered if I'd ever feel normal again. The day I walked out of the Illinois Correctional Facility, the air felt different, sharper, like I could finally breathe. My orange jumpsuit was gone, replaced by jeans and a hoodie Emma had sent. She was waiting outside, leaning against her beat-up Honda, her smile shaky but real. "You look like hell," she said, pulling me into a hug. I laughed, my first real laugh in months, but my chest was tight. Freedom was overwhelming, and Chicago's skyline felt both familiar and foreign. Back in the city, reality hit hard. My old life was gone. My job at the marketing firm, they'd let me go the second I was convicted. My apartment, sublet to some grad student. I crashed on Emma's couch in Logan Square, her tiny place cluttered with plants and horror movie posters. Every night, I'd stare at the ceiling, replaying the prank, the courtroom, Linda's tearful voice. Guilt clung to me like damp clothes, heavy and cold. I'd scared a family, cost them peace, and now I was a 29-year-old ex-con with nothing. Finding work was brutal. I applied to every coffee shop, warehouse, and delivery gig in Chicago, but my record was a scarlet letter. "Felony conviction?" the managers would ask, their eyes glazing over. I'd mumble about the prank, but it didn't matter. Emma pushed me to keep trying, slipping me $20 for bus fare, leaving post-it notes with cheesy quotes like, "You got this, Jake." Her faith kept me going, but I felt like I was letting her down all over again. One day, I landed an interview at a small print shop in Pilsen. The owner, a gruff guy named Carl, didn't flinch at my record. "You show up, you work, you don't screw around," he said, tossing me an apron. It wasn't glamorous hauling boxes, cleaning presses, but it was a start. My first paycheck, $300 after taxes, felt like a lifeline. I bought Emma dinner at a taco joint, and we laughed like old times, but I couldn't shake the feeling I didn't deserve it. Rebuilding relationships was harder. My parents barely spoke to me, their disappointment clear in clipped phone calls. Old friends ghosted, probably scared I'd turned into some thug. I reached out to Linda and Mark, sending a letter through the restorative justice program. I poured my heart out, apologizing for the fear I'd caused, promising I'd changed. A week later, Linda replied, her words sharp but fair. "We're trying to move on. Don't contact us again." It stung, but I understood. Some wounds don't heal. Slowly, I found a rhythm. I moved into a cheap studio in Uptown, started therapy to unpack the guilt. Emma dragged me to trivia nights, forcing me to smile. I began volunteering at a community center, teacher, teaching kids to avoid dumb mistakes like mine. It wasn't redemption, but it was something. Each day, I tried to prove I wasn't the idiot who'd stormed into the wrong apartment. The lesson was brutal, but clear. One bad choice can ripple, hurting people you never meant to touch. I vowed to think twice, to never let a prank or anything derail me again.